You ever shoot your AK and just feel like could use something a little bit more beefy? This trigger's like really hairy. Hey guys, welcome back to Triple F Shooting. We are most blessed to be out here today on the range with RPKs. This one is an AES 10B made in Romania, but it is RPK at heart with just a couple of changes. So before we go do all the shooty and bang bang business, we're gonna look at what an RPK is and why it's special, if it is at all. So if you wanna come in a little bit tight, first thing we're gonna show is the receiver on this guy. You have a 1.5 millimeter receiver built up so that it can sustain fire a little bit better than your traditional AKM. Now, that's not the only difference. We have a solid, heavier top cover. You'll notice we have a odd looking clubfoot stock. That is specifically so that within prone fire, if I can hold it up, I can reach back here and hang on. And that way I can leave the muzzle of the gun kind of doing its thing on the bipod and I can control from the rear. Otherwise, the receiver's just a hair longer. Everything else is pretty much AK. I believe you can change the bolt with a regular AKM bolt. It can take 30 round magazines, 40 round magazines drum like any other AK can. A Romanian AES 10B actually has a really stout carry handle, which actually is super comfortable to hold. You can see it's very well balanced. Like I'm just holding it out and I'm not doing any kind of tilting back and forth. It's just hanging on right there. I have a little bit different handguard furniture. It's a little chunkier than on your standard AKM, and then obviously the barrel is a big boy. We get rid of the bayonet lug. You can see there's no way I can put a bayonet on this guy because I have a bipod in place. Now, originally the bipod would have been just a fixed length. There is no way I could adjust for it on the Romanians, and I think some later RPKs you got to the point where you had these wing nuts so you could adjust your command height so that if you have to do different things or different positions, you're not strictly stuck to just one height. At the end of the gun, I just have a typical muzzle nut. I have no brake or anything on here, and the gun is very controllable because it weighs somewhere around 10 pounds unloaded. You throw a 75 round drum on there and that's going to go up quite a bit. This one is very clear. And this is a 40 round magazine. This is actually Korean make because RPK mags are so rare and very expensive to get your hands on. So I do have those, but those are staying home. I also, all of this furniture is Romanian. Bought that from, oh gosh, I think it's Gatewood Supply. It's a really cool place. They have a lot of old surplus stuff. Okay, this one comes off of an MD64, I believe. And you can tell that it is definitely used up and old. It's got lots of dings and nicks, and my gas tube cover is completely without finish at this point. So I may paint it, may leave it that way, or rough the rest of the gun up over time and just make it look better. But that's a quick overview at what an RPK is. So really fast, just to give you some kind of comparison, we'll go to the table and look at an AK. So this is a Romanian Walther 10 that I've done up to look kind of like a PM90, so we have the push button stock and all that crap, but that's not important for right now. What is important is we have a shorter ribbed top cover, a thinner receiver This one does not have a magazine dimple because it's a Wasser. That's one thing that you can tell really quick off the bat. It's different. And obviously my barrel is much shorter and much lighter. I can put on a bayonet lug, all that stuff. But just a quick, everything else though, you can see very similar. The trunnion is similar, the action, the bolt, everything is pretty much interchangeable. And before we get too much more into the history of it, we're going to do a few different shooting drills and look at the top loading drums and the back loading drums, and all the fun stuff that make RPKs nifty. And for those of you that think I wouldn't own a Gorka suit, I think you're ridiculous for thinking that I wouldn't own a Gorka suit. So that's what this is, by the way. I look like a angry Russian postal service guy. So. But I couldn't go without having a Russian uniform and having all this crap. If I've got the Western stuff and got the Vietnam stuff, I gotta have pretty much everything for all my different likes. All right, so before we get too far in, this is what an RPK should look like when they were at least first conceived. So the Romanian AES-10B differs a little bit with having that carry handle. It also has, which I did not show, also has a side rail for a scope mount. That would have happened on actual RPKs, it just would have been later, and really only meant for night vision, because the Russians don't care about optics. So they almost now still don't have optics, and it's 2022, so this isn't normal. This is something that the Romanians do on the AES-10B. Makes it neat. We'll throw an optic on there a little later, an actual Romanian optic, but just to give you an idea of what's actually supposed to look like is this. So this is a kit build with a Nodak spud, lower receiver. That doesn't mean anything to a lot of people. It's just one of the names of companies that makes lower receivers for this thing. This is not an actual Russian RPK. If it was, it'd be worth like more than my car. This is a Romanian kit build, I believe, made to look like a Russian piece. It actually has a Romanian trunnion on it, which you can only see because of the marking, very small on the side here. But somebody did a really good job with faking out Russian markings on the thing. You can tell that they weren't super great at rivets. Some of these look a little worse for wear than others, but the gun runs just fine and more than makes me happy. So you can see no side rail. We are just naked down the side, and that's pretty much how they would have come from the factory. Okay. All right, guys, so now we're going to talk drums, because that is how this thing would have initially been issued. There are a couple different types now. We would have started off with this, so we're going to save what I think is the best for last. These are really cool. They're really hard to get a hold of anymore, and they're fairly expensive. So we'll load that in a second. Now, the more common drum you're going to see today, especially Korean ones, Romanian ones, and Chinese ones especially, are hard to get of. This is a Romanian backloading drum. So this thing's actually loaded at the moment, but under no spring tension. So that's the cool thing about this drum, is I can leave this loaded, pick it up, crank it up, and get it going. So we'll look at how it loads real quick. You just have these two spring clips, and then the whole back opens up. And you've actually got sort of like a snail trail going through here, and it wraps around, but all you really have to do is drop a bullet in any open space you see. So there's pretty much, you're going to go 6-1, 6-1 all the way around, and then you've only got 4 in your last couple, and it will actually, that was hot. It'll actually start to heat up under pressure. You can see your coil spring mechanism is down inside, and all we have to do to get her cooking, close it up, latch my springs, take this key, and it is ratchet. So I'll give it one. A couple turns is enough to get a few rounds through. They differ depending upon the spring. It's not exactly. And if you use these very often, a lot of people know halfway through the thing you'll lose pressure and you have no more bullets coming. You have to come down and crank her back up and get her going again. So a little bit obnoxious and tedious to use, but very easy to load. And you can actually take all the spring tension off of the thing by opening her back up. I'm depressing this button right here, and that will let off your tension. So now I am no longer under spring pressure. I can kind of wiggle my rounds back down and safely store this thing without ruining the spring. So, kind of neat. Now, my favorite one in the original developed drum, this is in a drum pouch. I'm not exactly sure how this would have attached to you. I think I'm missing maybe a piece of it, and you could put it on your belt, break that loose, and go to work with it. But you can see here, I have a lever down inside. So this thing is under constant spring pressure, and that lever is there to aid me in loading. So what we're gonna do is reach in, get a hold of that, crank that lever up. You can see the followers have now dropped down, and I will place around. Now let off. I'm gonna crank again and continue this process 75 times. So you can see how when you load this thing, you're going to want to load what you actually want to shoot and keep it empty when you're not shooting, because that spring is going to stay under constant pressure and that's going to ruin it after a while. And these are fairly expensive. No sense in ruining it. And sometimes they can be a little bit of a fight to get going. I think I'm screwing something up here. A hang up or something. There we go. So you can see these aren't exactly the best thing ever. What makes these great is that I, and most other anecdotal stuff that I've read, they don't tend to fail. When you run one of these and you run all 75 rounds, all 75 rounds work. As long as that spring hasn't been torched, you're good to go. So it gives you an idea of the absolute tedium of loading one of these things, but very cool design, rarer and not terribly easy to get a hold of. So my favorite drum out of the two. All right guys, so for our drill with the RPK, because we got to do a drill, we're going to do kind of a react to contact. So I'm just going to be walking along with the thing slung up, round chamber to the safety on. At contact, I will basically come from the shoulder just to kind of demonstrate that this thing is very capable of being shoulder fired, and then deploy the bipod, get laid down, shoot till empty, and then show kind of a reload. Now laying down a reload is probably going to be ugly, but what am I if not ugly with reloads? So here we go. All right, we got our 75 round drum. I only got about 20 rounds in it because ammo's expensive, so we're walking along. Contact. Ah! Uh-oh. All right, and I have successfully outrun the gun. Okay. The mag. So we're gonna go ahead and, oh, we can just get that out the way. All right, get our mag loose. See how bad the bullet looks. And then I threw a bullet, because that's cool. All right. Could have gone better, but it was fine. All right guys, so why the RPK? So this gun was invented by Mikhail Kalashnikov himself, same guy who made the AK, basically for the sole purpose of getting rid of the RPD. Now the RPD was a belt-fed light machine gun chambered in the exact same thing as the AK and the 7.62x39, and it was a very nice gun. Ran well, but it was a little bit complicated and a little bit cumbersome to reload, all that good stuff. So this RPK is essentially here to simplify the process. Again, like we talked about earlier, the manual of arms for this is AKM. There is, or AK-47, however you want to look at it. There is no difference between running one of these and running a standard AKM. It's much heavier, has a thicker barrel, so I can hold my sustained fire. I was issued drums and longer mags so that I could basically perform in a squad automatic weapon role. Now, this would have been issued at a squad level, meaning however many guys you got, 1 or 2 of them is going to have this. And this thing is specifically for pinning down targets, but still being really light and mobile. And it does that really, really well. So very simple to use. I can use the magazines from the other guys in my squad. I can even interchange some of the parts if I need to, which hopefully I don't. This thing is ridiculously reliable, just like an AK. So squad would have had one of these. If they've got an enemy position they need to pin down with a little more heavy fire than you can provide with your standard rifle, this is the guy that would have done it. Now, it is limited compared to a belt fed because I cannot interchange my barrel, meaning I can't get this thing too hot or I will trash it and then it's toast. So that is a limiting factor. Another limiting factor is essentially with a belt, if you can keep connecting your links, you kind of have an unlimited amount of support fire you can lay down. That's arguable considering I can throw in another mag just as quick as I can reload an AK, but I'm going to run out of ammo with a 40 round stick a lot faster than I'm going to run out of a 100 round belt. The 75 round drums help to correct that. However, these are sort of a pain to carry. A standard loadout for one of these would have been a 75 round drum in the gun, most likely one of these angled top loaders, and then a bag of 4 40 round sticks. So that gives you 235 rounds of ammo just for your standard kit, and you can be loaded from any of your other squad mates because this will take a 30 round AK mag with no problem. So the RPK is to me, it's one of the most interesting little fixes to a problem, historically speaking, and it's probably one of my favorite guns. I'm still not totally sure why. They're extremely fun to shoot and they look awesome and all that, but realistically this is a simplified squad automatic rifleman's weapon that lets you pin down an enemy while still being very light and easy to use. So, ta-da! Nice. Okay, now we're gonna get a little closer to the Call of Duty goofiness. None of this is actually...
That was so beautifully on cue.
Yeah. Oh, okay. He's probably done. So, now we're going to get into more of the Call of Duty goof looking anyway. Now, this is an actual Romanian LPS 4x 6 degree sign tip 2. No idea what any of that means. I'll get you a still of it. But basically, this is a 4-power... no variable scope with my cute little rubber eyepiece to kind of get my eye relief exact. I can put this on the Romanian AES-10B because I have a side rail. Also going to be shooting our backload drum. I've cranked it up a couple of winds, so we should be able to get through quite a few rounds of it. I'm not going to dump a ton, but we'll do the same thing, but this time with the scope. That should let me get my head quite a bit higher. In fact, I don't even know if I'll get a cheek weld with this thing. And we'll throw a few rounds and do a reload like we did with the prettier standard looking RPK. There's contact. We're jammed. Having bad day with the Korean magazines. I don't know if I can get in there like this because I'm all goofy. So I can say that I hate wearing glasses and using rubber eyepieces at the same time. It's kind of like headbutting my way to a bad time. So Korean mags, although cheap and look the part, are not quite awesome, I have noticed. The last one was me outrunning the gun. This time I'm gonna blame the mag, because I don't think I threw that last bullet all the way out or something. I don't actually see it. I got this one though. Okay, so is that cooler than this? Short answer, yes. Is it more practical? For a civilian, probably not. If you're running in like a squad and the end of the world has come and you've got 1 or 2 guys that have stuff like this with heavier barrels and can lay down the fire, that's what their purpose is. They're not meant to replace your basic kind of do-all carbine. If things were really bad, would rather have a standard carbine than this big beefy monster. This is not exactly good for clearing houses and sort of the things that a civilian would be dealing with. Now, collectability, absolutely. So real quick, we'll run through the pros and cons of the RPK versus an AK. Obviously, much less recoil due to the weight, heavy barrel. The design of the stock is actually pretty nice in the prone. It is much shorter though, not much, but a little bit shorter though, so when you're actually firing from your shoulder, you're a little bit tighter in here, feels quite a bit different. As far as the cons go compared to something like this for just a regular old civilian, I don't want to carry that around all day. I don't want to try to lug it in and out of a car. I don't want to do any of that kind of thing. If you're out in the middle of nowhere and you got some guys with you, sure, that's great. But if this is the only thing I got, I'd rather have the regular carbine. So that's kind of what that is. As far as where can you get one of these now? Because I understand it's really difficult to watch all this crap and not just like, ooh, I want. So Palmetto State Armory is actually making these. I think the Romanian kit builds, and then they're talking about building their own entirely, just an American-made RPK, which is really cool because that keeps the price down, you know, to just have one to shoot. You're not buying some crazy collectible thing or trying to find a really rare kit to get put together. You can still find stuff like this kind of floating around on Gunbroker, but people are just all about pounding however they can pound on there. And I think another place I've seen them, it's been a little while though, was Atlantic Firearms. They did some kit builds, but those things sell out in like 3 or 4 hours. So definitely worth, if you are interested in one, you should keep an eye out and kind of watch different places, have your little email notifications, that kind of thing. Otherwise, sounds like Palmetto is probably going to be your best answer if you can't find one second. So without further ado, if it's me, obviously, I friggin' love this thing. It's one of my favorite guns out of all guns ever made. I can't quite explain that, but they just are. They're very cool. I like the history behind them and kind of the why they were made. So I would say absolutely get one. But if you actually need something for the utility of it, you're not looking to just have a collector piece or something to just kind of mess around with, you are much better served with, you know, a standard carbine, probably an AR or something like that. You can get ammo a little easier for now. But I would say 100% would absolutely buy another one of these if I got the chance at it. So that's all I got for now, guys. Thanks for watching Triple F Shooting, and we'll see you in the next one.